Hi folks, welcome back to the channel, and in this video I'm going to talk about getting online. What is the best way to get online if you need Wi-Fi in your van? So I'm not going to talk about sort of like just using your phone as a hotspot. Anybody can do that, and I do that randomly as well. What I'm talking about is actually installing a dedicated Wi-Fi system in your camper van, or it can be your static caravan, your off-grid cabin in the woods, or even your home on a normal housing estate where your broadband is a little bit naff. Maybe you're in a little village or something like that. So you want your own dedicated Wi-Fi system that's going to use the mobile phone network. And in this case, I'm going to talk about my use with EE. I've spent probably the last 10 years going through all the phone networks, including multiple SIM cards in my phone and through the routers, to work out which network gives overall the best coverage. And I've been to some epic places in 33 countries, and believe it or not, the UK has the worst mobile phone coverage, but the best network in the UK is EE for my testing and what I found. What I'm talking about is situations where the signal is either non-existent on your phone or is weak, in which case you need to boost that signal to get online, work, stream, or make calls over Wi-Fi, which most modern mobile phones allow you to make. And just a little bit of a sort of a bit more of an in-depth kind of insight into my situation. When I close these blinds at night, that actually blocks out the signal. I'm creating something called a Faraday cage, which is a metal cage that stops incoming and outgoing signals. So there is metal in the back of the blinds that I've got in my van, and therefore when I close the blinds, then that completes the full metal box of my van. So if I've got like one signal on my phone, if I close the blinds at night, I can get literally no signal. My phone then, if it's got no Wi-Fi connection, tries to look for a satellite to make emergency calls. So it does give you an indication of predominantly this setup in my van is to give me Wi-Fi everywhere, but I'm going to talk about specifics to improve the quality of the signal, and also to get a signal that's weak and bring it in to make it stronger, to make it a usable signal. So I know in my previous videos I've talked about all this equipment, and people have said, oh yeah, but I'm finding that I get a faster download speed off my phone when I'm on 5G outside my house than I do on the routers that you're suggesting with an external antenna on the roof in my camper van. Well, yeah, because that's not what this setup is for. So your phone has, predominantly anyway, the latest models, has the best hardware and software inside to get the best phone signal and data speeds from the mobile networks, whereas these routers don't have that much of a sort of technological advance state, if you like. No idea why. They could do it if they wanted to, but believe me, I've tried lots. I'll get back to that bit in a minute, but they're just not as good as a mobile phone if you're getting a great signal. I'm talking about the fact that I work remotely, I work online, and I want to make phone calls through the Wi-Fi, and I want to upload, download data as well through my Wi-Fi system. But predominantly, I'm not going to park in an area where there's 5G and expect my Wi-Fi setup to perform the same as my phone. That's not how it works, unfortunately. And yes, I have actually tried 5G routers, and they're still not as good as a mobile phone with 5G either. If you want to monitor your vehicle remotely, like CCTV, just to make sure it's all right, or if you're leaving a pet inside where you go out and do some shopping or something like that, and you want to monitor the camera inside, you will need something in here to create a Wi-Fi network to connect those cameras and everything to. That could well be an old mobile phone set up as a hotspot and just put in a cupboard or something like that. That still will work if you're in a, like I say, if you're in an urban area with good signal. But if you are remote, out in the sticks, as I like to go, and enjoy nature and things like that, this system that I'm going to suggest is the one that I found to work flawlessly, and obviously very well tried and tested. Like I say, 33 countries this system's come with me, and I keep making tweaks and changes as I go on to improve it. So far I have tried 9 routers, and these are either something like these, which have got a battery inside them, so they're meant to be a mobile portable hotspot as well as a router, as well as ones that you would put in 240 mains domestic or whatever in a house or in an office. Just because I've come across people on my travels and they've said, oh yeah, I use this and it's brilliant. And I'm never one to say to people, oh well, I don't think it's actually that good, because in the back of my mind I'm thinking, but it's not that good. I'm always one to say, right, okay then, well, I'll give it a go. And that's what I've done. I've gone out and I've bought everything that other people have said has been great, and I've given it a go. But in my situation, when I go to remote areas, at the bottom of a valley in Wales, or top of a mountain in Scotland, what I'm finding is that specifically there's a set type of router that seems to be like overall the best one. Right, so let's get into routers and antenna. I think overall I've had about 9 routers and 9 different types of antennas, and that's probably over the last 4 years. Again, testing out different countries, different scenarios, but overall I would say that my experience of using all these different types of routers and antennas does somewhat give me a bit of a heads up over other people that might be telling you what to do, and also the beauty about some of the experiences I've had as well is I've been parked in certain locations right next to people who have got a different setup. For example, there's a company out there that offer Moho Wi-Fi, and I've been parked next to people who've had that exactly the same setup, and they've not got a signal and I have. So it's not a case of I'm trying to say this works best for me and stuff you if you don't like it. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to take the pain away from people who are like me, wanting to get something installed in the vehicle that just works everywhere. It gets them online. It might not be the fastest in sort of like urban areas, but out in the sticks and generally across the board it works. It's fast enough to work, it's reliable, and it's not expensive, or not as expensive as some of the other options anyway. So I'm just going to run through some of the routers that I've had in the past, just to give you an idea of the ones not to buy, for me anyway, and also to point out how extensive my testing has been. I've got some here, but obviously I don't keep every single router, so I've actually got sort of little screenshots of some that I have tried in the past. So for example, this one is from GLInet, the GLX3000. And this was a MIMO router, which is multiple input, multiple output. All of these have been MIMO routers, so dual antennas, so you ultimately get the best signal inbound and outbound. And again, this one, I just wanted to give it a try. It was 5G, had multiple antenna sockets on it, all sort of internal, external ports and everything, so I could connect more antenna on the roof to get a better signal. It was also 12 volts, so I could easily use it in the van. It just didn't work that great in everyday circumstances. I found it either cut out or the signal dropped, like it was limited by some factor, or it was in itself somehow limiting the throughput of data. So it's kind of like go up on a speed test and then spike. Or if you'd used it for a couple of hours and it was all right, all of a sudden it would just be absolute garbage. Here's another one, the Huawei H112 CPE, again another 5G router. I'll put a screenshot over the top now. And also had external points on the back, mains powered, normal domestic router. And again, this was something that somebody else had said, yeah, this works great. I've had it in the the motorhome for a while now and it just works fine. It wasn't that good at getting a weak signal. Another one, for example, is the ZTE 5G, another 5G router. Again, all sorts of issues with that one. I think that one didn't last more than about a month or two before that one went back. And again, that had external router connections. But this was me trying to get 5G working rather than sticking to 3G or 4G, because I'm paying for a 5G service with the SIM card, the dedicated SIM card that I've got from EE, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well, just to let you know the type of SIM card it is. But ultimately, I think what I came across is that the 5G routers, if they're stationary and don't ever move, like they're in an office building or a house, they're okay. They're still not as fast as a 5G mobile phone, but they're okay. But as you move around, 5G's pretty pathetic actually. 5G has got about as much range as a human being shouting. So, a couple of 100 yards at best. So, like for example, street lamps have got 5G routers, repeaters and things like that in them, because they're small little power source, or the ability to give a small power signal out, and therefore they can be placed in many different places, unlike 3G and 4G, where you'll see a massive big antenna at the side of the road or on top of a building, which has got massive amounts of power. Now the thing about 5G, while they're all pushing it, is because it can handle more data and more connections, so I can see why they're pushing it. But the process of you moving between all those little microsites to connect to 5G just doesn't work, and the routers just get so confused, they just don't work. I think the other thing that the routers are compromised by with having the 5G support is it makes the 4G or 3G service inside the router not as good as a dedicated 3G or 4G router. And that's kind of my monitoring and sort of data logging experiences, as that's what I've basically come up with. Another 5G router I tried was the Netgear M5, and again a dedicated 5G mobile router. So just like this, got a battery in it. The antenna sockets are on the bottom there. I did find that the Netgear M5 was also pretty average at 5G, average at 4G, and average at 3G. So that wasn't good either. And on my last try, and this was my most recent try because this one's going back, and this is the Netgear M6, the very latest, £700 worth of router, mobile hotspot router. And again, the problem with it is that it's at best, if you're stuck in one location and you're getting 5G, it's average 5G, but it's pretty naff at 4G. So yeah, that's why that's going back. So let's talk about the 4G routers and how well they've been. Well, I started off with the Huawei 4G routers with the antenna, and sadly I don't think they make them anymore, but they're also, I think they're still supplied for the Moho Wi-Fi company, if you know who they are. They're an average setup. Like I say, they're okay, and I started off with them. What I did find is that they've not got the best support for firmware data connectivity to the networks, which is when I moved across to Netgear, and my first I think it's an 810 or an 820 air card from Netgear. Again, you've got the antenna little connections down the bottom there, and also power and data as well, because you can use it as a hotspot and things like that as well. And this worked quite well. Again, this is just 3G, 4G, but then you have got to understand that these are made to a certain point, and Netgear sadly don't keep software support going that long. So as networks progressed and advanced, I did find that this was less able to deal with the higher speeds and the weaker network signals of 4G. So that was replaced with this, which is the Netgear M1. Again, 3G, 4G, and again, it's got the little connections on the bottom there for your external antenna. This one's now got USB-C for power and data connectivity, so they did advance on that. And it's also got an Ethernet port on the bottom for data connectivity. You'd think, oh, it's pretty good. And it was for a certain amount of time. And believe me, I tried this quite recently, within the last month. When I found this was a bit naff, I thought I'd give this a bit of a go as well, just to see how it went. Basically, this was Mandy's old router, and this was worked fine in her old van and a new van for around about a year, and then started having problems where it would just power off. So it's got a little bit of a power issue going on with it. So I lent her my current router, which was the Netgear M2, and that's been flawless in her van, as it was flawless in my van. So you can guess what's coming next almost. But anyway, the Netgear M1 was okay, but recently it came back to life. So I thought, as I was sending back the M6, I'd go back to the M1 and just try it out, see what it was like. And believe it or not, it got a better signal than the M6, but it was still not as good as I remembered the M2, and certainly sat next to Mandy, who's got an identical antenna on her roof as I have now. The M1 wasn't getting as fast a connection speed as the M2. When this worked in her van and I had the M2, I would always get a better connection, better speeds in the M2 than the M1. So it was obvious, you know, as time moves on, it got better. In a recent video, you'll notice that I was talking about getting a new router. And that was it, an M2. I found that the M2, the Netgear M2, and specifically on this one, is the MR2100. This has got the best compatibility to all the European networks that I've ever connected to. It's brilliant. I can't fault it at all. It's rock solid reliable. Wi-Fi connection from this to my devices is brilliant. The range, I would say, probably gets you about 20 meters away from the van, maybe more, maybe less, but around about 20 meters. The antenna connections under it are just primarily for its 4G connection, not for it to retransmit Wi-Fi signal. So let's talk about antennas, because like I say, I've been through quite a few little bits of antennas as well. As you know, I started off testing all sorts of different ones. One of the first ones that I ever tested was, again, it was an unbranded one, but it was this one. Massive big pole on top of the van. Again, 2 wires coming out the bottom, so it was multiple input, multiple output, MIMO. But this one said that it had a 10 dBi gain, and again, when I talked about the signal that the routers measure, like a good signal or a bad signal, that's measured in dBi. So if you can get a 10 dBi gain, it would go from an averagely signal to a usable signal, something that you could stream, YouTube, Netflix, all that kind of stuff, send text messages, make WhatsApp calls, video calls, all that kind of stuff. So that's the difference in having an external antenna makes. You might say, well, yeah, I just fancy one of those nice little pucks, a little puck antenna to put on the roof because they look really neat. And yeah, quite recently got a bit of experience of that one as well, because Mandy thought that would be a really good signal because she didn't want the big daft thing that I had on my roof. And it didn't take her very many weeks at all to understand that antenna was pretty useless. So another antenna was a pointing 4G antenna. And this one says that it's got a 3 dBi gain, which you might think, well, what's the point in that? But again, that tiny little difference in signal strength makes a big difference in the data speed that you can get. So it's worthwhile. But again, they're quite big. So all these antennas I'm going to show you are omnidirectional, which means that they will literally pick up a signal all the way around. You don't have to kind of like manually sort of point them in the direction or anything like that. I will also say that try and put your antenna at the uppermost point of your roof, over metal or over part of your roof as well, to act as a ground plane for that signal to hit and be sort of directed into the antenna. But obviously don't put it in a place where it's going to create a shadow over your solar panel, because then you'll end up with a great signal and crappy solar. So yeah, another antenna that I then moved on to was this one that I actually tried for a few weeks, or probably a few months actually, on this van as I was building it, which is a crazy, I think it was almost 24 centimeters. So that one got the nickname the dildo. And that was okay. That was probably one of the better ones that I've tried. Not too expensive, but it just was massive, really stood out. So you then think, well, there's got to be another solution. So then there's a smaller one, and this one claims that it's 25 dBi gain. Sadly, it wasn't. Yeah, I just kind of got frustrated with that in the end, broke it into pieces, and found it had nothing inside whatsoever to make any gain of any kind of like. In fact, the two wires just went inside and were curled up inside, and that was it. So yeah, I learned this stuff so you don't have to waste your money. You can say thanks in the comments later. The next one that I then tried was the 5G pointing, which was basically supposed to be the version 2 of the, the older pointing antenna I tried. And that one, again, is quite bulky-ish. Did 4G, 5G, gave a great quality of signal, but still, like I say, the bulk of it, the downside of that is obviously it drags like in wind. Like say, the bigger the antenna can cause cast a shadow over solar panels, and it can whistle as well while you're going down the road, or if the wind's blowing at night, it can whistle because it's a big thing on the roof. So I was always thinking like there's got to be different ways. So rather than showing you pictures, I can show you real life things now. And obviously it's just a one antenna, but I bought two so I could have multiple inputs. So there we go, two antennas, two connections. And what I did with these, I tried them next to each other all the way eventually to each corner of my van to see if there was an option where I could pick up the best signal. Is there a certain element of distance between each one or whatever? And I tried around with these for maybe about a month and a half in all sorts of different variations. And these were okay, more discreet, and moving them around the van didn't make that much difference. To have them separated, that worked better than having them close together. So what I did in the end is I put them on the rear corners of my roof rack, and that kind of like was all right. That got the best signal, the best service out of them, and they were okay. But I still thought, at the end of the day, you've got all these extra wires and everything else, and there's got to be something else. And that's when I came across this little fella. Again, I'm trying to balance cost of the size of it, but overall its functionality, how well it performs, if you like. So this again is multiple inputs. The reason why it's cut off right now, and the reason why I've got one of these in my hand, is because I may have damaged the other one, so I had to buy a new one. So I thought I'd keep this one as a bit of an example of what to show. So I'd always suggest you mount it slightly higher, and our installations on our two vans is it's mounted on the bracket on the highest point we can, so it's still not causing a problem with solar panels or anything like that, but you're just to get it as high up as you can. And that so far has been one of the best. So I would say this is equal to the pointing, both in signal quality and the signal strength. Almost as equal to the massive dildo, which is only really removed because it really was getting to be a bit impractical. I could have put it on a bracket where I stopped and then pinged it upright and did all that, but I used data on the go as well. So I just wanted something that was out there, didn't have to mess around with it. It's just, ready to go all the time. So that is the best one so far. I'm expecting, that there might be more in the future, but right now in time, that is the best antenna. And I've got that paired with the Nighthawk M2, and that's in both my van and Mandy's van, and we both get cracking signals. And like I say, we've been parked up to lots of different people over the last few months to test this out against their Wi-Fi installations and ours, as we've done in the past, and we always end up sharing out our Wi-Fi, or more recently, and I have got it in the background here, Starlink. So I'm going to make a dedicated video about Starlink, that's going to come soon. But yeah, Starlink is for when you can't get a signal using this and you can't get a signal on your phone, get the Starlink out. Or when we're trying to work remotely, both of us, and we need the upload download speed. So for example, the other day we were in a location, we were with Em and Lou from Camper Vibe. They have the Moho Wi-Fi set up. They had no signal. Mandy and I have got these set up, and we both had a roughly okay signal. You could WhatsApp, you could get a little bit of Instagram before it just sort of said couldn't refresh feed. Our phones had no signal whatsoever all the time, but obviously having this extra Wi-Fi set up with the antenna on the top helped us. And then basically we just put the Starlink dish up when we needed to work properly. So the last thing I want to talk about is the EE SIM card that I've got in my router. I just got on my normal account, so my account has my phone, Mandy's phone, and our SIM cards in there as well. And I bought a secondary SIM card, just a regular phone SIM card. I don't buy data SIMs because they don't give you any better service, and some of the time you get charged more money. But also, if you don't buy a data SIM, it does mean that if you just get a regular SIM, and I use the EE Unlimited 4G 5G SIM, I get it discounted to about £22 a month, because obviously I've got multiple phones on the account already. But it does mean then I can take that SIM card out if I ever need it and plug it in a phone. I've got some spare phones with me, and use it as a regular SIM card. So that's why I go for a dedicated SIM card that is just a regular mobile phone SIM card, because I can put it into any of the routers. The SIM cards come with the 3 different sizes in them now, and the M6 uses the nano SIM. The M2 uses the micro SIM, and then the older ones use the full-size SIM. So it comes quite useful to have that SIM with all the little different surrounds to go through all this kind of testing anyway. Now, another SIM that we have got, that we've been trialing out as well, Mandy's currently got that, which was one that we saw on Amazon, and it's an EE Unlimited data SIM. So I recently went across to France, and within a few hours that just stopped working. And to be fair, it does say on there that it won't work for roaming. It is just for the UK, and that's like a set fee for unlimited data for a period. So I think we paid something like £200 to get that SIM card for, it was like 18 months, 24 months. So it works out really cheap. It works out cheaper than the deal I've got on mine for £22 a month. I think it works out about £11-12 a month. The only thing about that is that we have noticed now and again it will get rate limited. So where I'm getting a cracking data speed out of it, and we're at the same place with the same signal, the same gear, on this SIM card that Mandy's got from Amazon, she won't get the same speeds that I'm getting from my one that I've bought directly on my account from EE. So whilst it's a good thing, and if you just want to be online and you're not too bothered like we are about uploading massive amounts of data and downloading it, it may well work for you. Again, all this stuff's all in the video description down below. It's all linked there. And just to let you know as well, while I'm saying this, it's all linked with my affiliate links, which means that you get the same price you would if you hadn't clicked my link, but I get a small amount of little commission paid back from Amazon. So yeah, just to mention that now, because they do like to check and make sure I am telling you that. So yeah, if you get the mega deal Amazon EE data SIM, you'll save loads of money, but just bear in mind that SIM card might well get rate limited, whereas the dedicated SIM card you can buy from EE won't. Also, I want to say as well is, like, while Mandy's wouldn't work abroad, mine does. I have to pay an extra, I think it's £15 a month to get the same deal as I get in the UK, since we've left Brexit and all that kind of stuff. So when I go abroad now, I just pay £15 a month extra, and that gives me the whole service that I get in the UK for my phone and my data SIM card. So it's just 15 quid a month. I'm going abroad, I don't have to worry about anything. It then automatically connects to whatever network's available, as my phone does, and still gives me unlimited, and it works great. And like I say, one of our trips we were away for 10 months, and EE didn't limit me, they didn't ask for more money, they didn't cut me off, unlike I think at the time Mandy was with 3, and they cut her off after a couple of months. And we've been traveling with other people who've been on O2, and they get sort of warned after 2 or 3 months, we're going to cut you off. EE don't do that. Now I know that it says in their terms and conditions that they're allowed to. I'm just saying that they don't. Hopefully that'll continue forever and a day. They won't watch this video and going, oh, we'll have you now, mate. So yeah, quite happy with our setup on EE using this antenna and this router. We get really good signal almost everywhere we go. I would say 95% of where we go, we get a good signal on that setup. Certainly loads of places where the phone doesn't get any signal at all. And if you keep your eyes peeled, it's probably going to be in another couple of weeks or so for the Starlink video. I'll explain more about that. I'm going to go through the costs, setup, how we use it, you know, making phone calls over it, working on it. You've asked a bunch of questions, I know, in the previous video, so I'm going to address all those. If you've got any more questions about Starlink for that video, then obviously ask in the comments section down below. And also, if you've got any questions about this and all the other routers and everything else, ask in the comments section down below, and I'll do my very best to get back to you. Right, folks, I did also want to finish off for you lovely people who are still here, who are obviously proper supporters of the channel. You're probably wondering what happened to this week's vlog. We have decided now that because Mandy and I are traveling and everything else, that the John and Mandy channel is just going to go back to John and Mandy, and we're going to put regular travel vlogs on the John and Mandy travel channel. So yeah, that channel that was basically Epic Adventures is now just John and Mandy again. I know, whatever, I made a mistake. I changed it thinking it needed to, and it didn't need to change. So yeah, if you watched me cycle up the Kirkstone Pass and I talked about going into Scotland, we are here, but that video is on the John and Mandy channel. So all future John and Mandy travels are going to be on the John and Mandy travel channel, like the Van Chat Tuesday or the Van Tech Tuesday kind of videos. They're going to be on this channel. If I ever get to understand what went wrong with my van and its DPF, AdBlue system or whatever, all that stuff will go on this channel. Technical stuff, all that's going to go on this channel, and the travel stuff's going to go on the other channel. So hope that is all right with you guys. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.